Have you ever caught yourself thinking about thinking? That strange loop where your mind watches itself like a camera filming a mirror. It sounds simple, but if you look deeper, it exposes something wild. We are never actually in the present. We are narrators of our own lives, always 1 second behind the action, like a sports commentator stumbling to describe a play that's already happened. Even the sentence forming in your head right now, it's not live. It's a memory. By the time you're aware of a thought, it's already passed. That means you're not thinking reality, you're remembering it. Let that sink in. When something happens, before you label it, define it, put it into words, there's a tiny window where it's just raw experience, pure, undigested, wordless presence. But our minds can't leave it alone. We grab at the experience, wrap it in language, try to make sense of it, and by doing so, we kill its immediacy. It's like catching a snowflake only to watch it melt in your palm. This is the paradox of conscious thought. To name something is to miss it. The moment you name a feeling, joy, sadness, love, it becomes smaller than what it really was. Language boxes it in. Words are useful, but they're clumsy. They're like trying to paint the ocean with a crayon. The original sensation, the full body, wordless truth, gets lost in translation. And yet we keep doing it over and over because it's how we make sense of our world. But sense isn't always the same as truth. Even silence isn't truly silent. Sit in meditation, and you'll notice there's still a part of you observing the silence, labeling it, waiting for something to happen. The watcher never really shuts up. And as long as there's a watcher, there's thought. The irony? You can't even attempt thoughtlessness without thinking about how to do it. Try to stop the mind, and you create more mind. You can't escape the loop by fighting it. This is what makes the idea of thoughtless consciousness so compelling and so maddening. It's not a state you can reach by effort. It's not a goal you can chase, because chasing it is already too much. You're trying to reach the place beyond words by using more words. You're trying to arrive at silence by shouting directions. So the real question isn't how to stop thinking. It's who is the one trying to stop? And what happens when you stop trying altogether? That right there is the edge between madness and awakening. One loses their mind, the other lets it go. Now that we've glimpsed the truth hiding behind the noise, the reality that thought is always a beat behind, always a narrator, and never the actor, Part 2 dives deeper into that strange in-between. The space where thought has not yet formed, but something is still undeniably alive. You've probably felt it before, though maybe you didn't know what to call it. That brief pause right before you speak, when your mind goes quiet, and something else decides what comes out. Or that eerie stillness just after a big realization, when words seem useless, and all that remains is raw presence. This isn't imagination. It's not mysticism. It's the pre-thought zone, the non-conceptual layer of awareness that precedes everything we label as knowing. This is where it gets interesting. Most of us believe that our thinking mind is what makes us intelligent. We've been trained to trust the chatter, to problem solve, analyze, prepare, evaluate. But what if that constant internal narration isn't the source of intelligence at all? What if it's just the clunky afterthought, like a lagging reporter trying to explain what the body, the senses, and the deeper awareness already know? Think about how animals move. A cheetah doesn't calculate its stride before sprinting. A bird doesn't do math to fly south for the winter. Even toddlers, before they can form coherent sentences, already respond with incredible precision to the world around them. There's an intelligence that exists before language, before reflection, before thought. And here's the kicker. This pre-thought intelligence isn't something mystical reserved for monks or gurus. You already use it every day. When you duck without thinking, when you solve a problem in a dream, when you say, "I don't know how I knew, I just knew." That's it. That's the space we're talking about. But most of us are so busy trying to interpret life that we miss the part of us that's actually living it. It's like watching a movie and focusing only on the subtitles, never looking up to see the actual scene. Thought is the subtitle. Life is the scene. And if you get too lost in the words, you miss everything else. Now, of course, we need thought. Without it, we couldn't plan, communicate, build. But when thought becomes the only voice we listen to, when the narrator drowns out the experience, we end up living secondhand lives, always slightly removed, always slightly late. That's why practices like meditation, long walks in silence, or even losing yourself in music can feel so deeply refreshing. They don't add anything, they subtract. They give you a rare chance to slip under the current of thought and touch something more immediate, more real, something that doesn't need to be put into words to be true. This is where real presence begins, not in thinking about the moment, but in disappearing into it. And once you've tasted that, really tasted it, everything changes. Because you start to see just how noisy your mind has been all along. You start to notice how often you're trapped in commentary instead of contact. And that's when the search begins. Not for more answers, but for fewer distractions. Not for knowledge, but for clarity, for stillness, for that rare moment when you stop chasing life and finally feel it land. And in that landing, something quiet, almost sacred, starts to rise. Just like that, once you've tasted the clarity beneath the noise, you can never quite go back to living entirely in your head. Part of you knows now, knows that real awareness doesn't scream. It whispers. It's subtle. It's the quiet presence that was always there, waiting for you to notice it behind the curtain of thought. But here's the paradox that starts to creep in. The moment you try to stay in that thoughtless presence, you're no longer in it. You're thinking about it, trying to grasp it, recreate it, own it. And just like that, it's gone. Like trying to hold water in your hands by squeezing tighter. That's the trap. The mind is clever. It doesn't want to be out of a job. So even when you think you're beyond it, it sneaks back in, disguised as the one trying to be mindful or present. That's why chasing thoughtlessness is so frustrating. It's like a dog chasing its tail. The very effort pulls you further away from the thing you're trying to reach. What's needed is not effort, but surrender. Not doing, but allowing. Imagine sitting on a porch during a storm. The rain is falling, thunder rumbling in the distance. You're not trying to stop the storm. You're just there, fully, not naming it, not analyzing it, just watching, feeling, breathing. That's the kind of awareness we're talking about. Not as an idea, but as a direct encounter with the now. This is the real art, not silencing the mind by force, but stepping so far back from the need to control that the mind loses its grip on you. You don't fight the thoughts anymore. You stop identifying with them. They can swirl, rage, plead, tempt, but they're no longer you. You're just the space they move through. Think about how dreams work. When you're caught in one, it feels completely real. But the moment you realize you're dreaming, everything shifts. The dream might still continue, but it no longer controls you. That's what it's like to wake up inside your own mind, to see the thoughts not as truth, but as patterns, stories, echoes. And suddenly, you're not inside the cage anymore. You're observing it. This shift doesn't happen once. It happens again and again in flashes. You drift back into thought, forget, wake up, and remember. And that's okay. That's the rhythm. Like waves hitting the shore, presence comes and goes. But each time you come back, it deepens. Each return softens the hold your mind has over you. And slowly, you begin to trust something else. A deeper current underneath the chatter. A quiet knowing that doesn't speak in words. It doesn't shout. It simply waits for you to listen differently. This isn't about escaping your thoughts. It's about becoming spacious enough that they no longer define you. And once you start to live from that space, even a little, everything begins to feel lighter. You stop bracing against the world. You stop constantly narrating your experience. You begin to experience it, not because you've solved anything, but because you finally stopped trying. And so the real transformation doesn't arrive with a bang or a revelation. It seeps in quietly. One moment you're caught in a loop of overthinking. The next you're simply here fully. You're not watching your breath, you're breathing. You're not analyzing joy or grief, you're feeling it. Raw, honest, unfiltered. That's when you realize the goal was never to annihilate thought. It was to see it for what it is, a tool, not a tyrant. A background process, not your identity. Thought can build bridges, write symphonies, solve equations, but it cannot hold the weight of your being. It was never meant to. So much of our suffering comes from asking thought to do something it cannot, define who we are. We try to think our way to peace, to meaning, to love, but all of those things live in a different neighborhood. One thought can access. They're experiential, felt, lived, and they reveal themselves only when we're still enough to receive them. That stillness isn't sterile. It isn't numb. It's vibrant, awake. It's the quiet thrill of being completely alive in a single moment. No commentary, no agenda, just this. A mother cradling her newborn, a surfer waiting on the wave, a writer lost in the sentence, a mechanic listening to the hum of the engine. That's not thought, that's presence. And in those moments, life doesn't need to be explained. It explains itself. But here's the catch. You can't stay there. Not forever. You'll slip back. Get caught in the noise again. It's part of the deal. And when that happens, it's not failure. It's the reminder. The pull back to the practice. Not the kind with incense and cushions, though that's fine, but the kind you do in the middle of traffic or during an argument or while folding laundry. That's where this becomes real. Not an escape, but an integration. Because the point was never to abandon thought. It was to stop being owned by it. It was never to float away from life. It was to show up for it more fully. To see clearly, speak gently, move freely, live honestly. And the wildest part? When you stop trying to be thoughtless, something opens. Space, grace, ease. You don't have to force life to make sense anymore. You don't need to label every experience. You trust the unfolding. You let the silence speak. You become, in the most unexpected way, the most grounded version of yourself. Not because you've mastered life, but because you've stopped trying to outthink it. And that's where the paradox resolves itself. You don't become a different person. You return to the one who was never separate to begin with. If something in this resonated with you, if even for a moment you felt the noise quiet just enough to glimpse the space beneath it, don't let it pass unnoticed. Take a moment now. Close your eyes. Breathe. Not to control, not to meditate with effort, but simply to notice. Let whatever arises arise and watch. Then, in the comments, share your moment. What did you feel? What did you see in that silence, even if just for a breath? Not for validation, not for performance, but to reflect, to make it real, to anchor it. And if this exploration stirred something deeper, subscribe to Psych Secrets, because this is just the beginning. Here we don't chase quick answers, we practice seeing clearly. And the next time life gets noisy, you'll know the silence is always there, patiently waiting.